I recently produced a Business of Story training for the board of directors and team members of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, the global nonprofit founded in Arizona in 1980 that now has 59 chapters throughout the United States and operates in about 50 countries. They do marvelous work. During a break, one of their board members jumped on a call with a prospect and closed the deal using the ABT story structure he had just learned in that session, talking about immediate ROI. But can the ABT really be that easy, that effective in such a short amount of time? Hi, I'm Park Howell, and welcome to the Business of Story. The ABT is the DNA of storytelling, meaning that it is the primal foundation that all compellingly clear storytelling is built upon. Today, Fran Mallace, the president and CEO of Make-A-Wish Arizona, joins us to share how she uses storytelling to build vibrant relationships, grow powerful teams, and build a winning company culture, and how you can too through the stories you tell. I've known Fran since I moved to Phoenix way back in 1985. She moved here from New Jersey when she attended Arizona State University, earning a degree in broadcast management. Fran launched her advertising career on both the client and agency sides before shifting to sales, joining Cox Media in 1992. Over 3 decades at Cox Media, she rose to group vice president, managing sales operations across multiple states. In 2022, Fran became president CEO of Make-A-Wish Arizona, leading efforts to grant wishes for critically ill children. And now she, like me, wishes she had learned about the ABT in the 3rd grade because of its power to focus your story on your audience and what's in it for them and why they should care about what you have to share.
All the sales training, you and I have done and marketing and all that, you forget about that. And when you can take something as simple as knowing what the ABT is, like I think about it all the time now as a filter. And even conversations that we have with the team, and quite frankly, even conversations I have with my husband, and my kids, it's very, very effective and it's very simple. But that was the one thing that I really walked away with, reminding myself and all of us that it is not about us. And this is why we do the work we do, but reminding us that, wow, aha moment, we need to really make it about, the person in our audience that we're talking to and why it's important for them and why to get, how to get them excited and engage with something that maybe they really never thought they'd have an opportunity to do.
Deeply involved in community service, Fran has served on various boards and volunteered with organizations like Cox Charities and the ASU Walter Cronkite School of Journalism. She has been recognized with numerous awards for her contributions and is passionate about mentoring. She holds an MBA from the Thunderbird School of Global Management and lives in Phoenix with her husband, Michael, with their 2 daughters, Sydney, who's in Scottsdale, and Jordy, over in Los Angeles. So how can you build vibrant relationships, grow powerful teams, and build a winning company culture with your storytelling? Fran Mallace is here to show you how she does it. Good morning, Fran. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's great. I mean, you and I have known each other for many, many, many years. We're kind of the old sages of advertising in the Phoenix marketing world.
I like to say experienced as opposed to old.
Experienced sages. I'll buy that.
I do like sage, though. Love that word.
Yeah, I moved to Phoenix in 1985 from Seattle, and I think you, along with Ray Artigue, were 2 of the first real PR and advertising professionals I came across in Phoenix. That's been a long career.
Yeah. How fun is that? We have lots of good memories for sure.
And then we crossed paths just a month and a half ago during the Phoenix Business Journal's Nonprofit Summit, where I had the honor of keynoting and doing some story training there. And you then came over and said, "Park, it's been 20 years. How are you? It's great. Can you come and work with my board?" And I said, "Absolutely."
And our people. And how lucky was that for me that I actually attended that day and got to reconnect with you. So forever grateful and your generosity is incredible. So thank you for that. And our team got a lot out of it, and so did our board.
Oh, that's great to hear. So let's get your backstory, because you did come up through the advertising ranks. You were then in sales with Cox Media, and now you are the CEO of the phenomenal Make a Wish Arizona
Yeah,
organization.
so fortunate. So truly, going from the for-profit world to the nonprofit was such a really, quite frankly, an easy transition, because I was fortunate enough that when I worked at Cox, that we were given the opportunity to sit on various boards, and I had the honor and privilege of sitting on the Make-A-Wish Arizona board. And forever will be grateful for everyone at Cox for allowing me to do that, because I fell in love with the mission. And here I am. So, 30 years, amazing career with an incredible company. Never thought I would ever go to another organization. I would retire from Cox, and I did. But then I was able to now take really my last chapter and put it into the nonprofit space, but more importantly, into something that I have such passion for and love of, which is Wish kids and their families.
And
So,
how long have you been
uh,
there at Make a Wish
almost
Arizona?
3 years, and I was
Yeah.
on the board for almost 7. So really combined, kind of 10 years, which
Mm-hmm.
is wild, because it seems like yesterday, and it doesn't even seem like I've been here for almost 3 years as a
Mm-hmm.
full-time employee because of being involved. And I started as a volunteer even before being on the board. And I just really never realized how much I was attached, particularly with when you talk about telling stories, these Wish Kids stories and how they evolve, and everything that's happened in their lives, and how we stay connected with our alumni group is pretty incredible. So, but it is all about storytelling and the power of a wish, and how can you not be in love with that, right?
Yeah. Can you give us an example of one of the Make a Wish stories that really tugged at your heartstrings over the course of the
Sure.
past
Well,
10
I'll tell
years?
you the one that was the most defining for me, and that was my first board meeting. And I had been on a couple of wishes myself as a volunteer, but this sense of wish to give, because a lot of kids are not as selfless as you would think, right? I mean, just think about a 17-year-old young man who had a brain tumor, and he's doing great. So we always say it's not necessarily a last wish, because our kids really do live beautiful lives. It's a lasting wish. And he talked about his music teacher and how important it was for him to have a celebration for the holidays. And not that his music teacher was saying, oh my gosh, we're going to have a terrible Christmas. He just said, oh my gosh, I have 3 kids, and, I'm working a couple of jobs, and I would love to get them computers because I want them to have an advantage, as they grow up, just as you have, as a student. And he said that was what connected for him. And his wish, instead of going somewhere, traveling, or doing something really special for him, his desire was to give his music teacher and their family computers and a wonderful holiday. I'm getting goosebumps as I tell it. And to me, I feel like that was meant to be for my first mission moment, is what we call them. At every board meeting, we have one at the beginning. And I felt like, wow, I have made such the right decision to be part of this organization, even as a board member, because I didn't even realize that you could do a wish that was to give. Because all of the ones I had been on before as a volunteer were either a room redo, or a shopping spree for the child, or a trip to Disney World or Hawaii or whatever. So this was my first experience with a wish to give. And then I was like, whoa, this is incredible. So yeah, not teary eyed all along the way in terms of that. But there's so many wishes. There's, Nicholas, who wanted to see the man in the white robe, who basically was the Pope. So he got to meet, Pope Francis. But oh my gosh, man caves, you name it. If you can think it up as a child, we get to make that come true for them, and, make that and grant that wish. So, but that one is the most memorable, because it was really my first one that I was like, whoa, the kids can give wishes away and do something. And we just had one recently where in Flagstaff, so right in your neighborhood, basically, where another 17-year-old boy, young man, was on the football team, and his wish was to give the team all brand new helmets. And that was just a few weeks ago. And we went up in Riddell, and the Larry Fitzgerald Foundation got involved. And sure enough, 55 brand new helmets that have the brand new, all the new things that prevent concussions and protect them. That was his wish. Goosebumps again. So that was an incredible day, just being able to celebrate him and the team. And that's the joy that it brings. So those are, I don't want to say they're my favorite, but they are definitely up there in terms of being very special.
Well, they're certainly top of mind. And so, how did your early career through the advertising world and then in sales at Cox for what, 3 decades, you said, how did it
Yeah.
prepare you for being CEO of Make-A-Wish Arizona?
I think it prepared me because it's always, again, about relationships and doing the right thing and making sure that you are doing things for not only the community, but for the people that you're serving. And I always looked at even clients and customers, right? Now it's our wish kids in our community, but anytime that you can get involved and give back, especially, I just got really lucky with Cox and everywhere, actually, even when I worked at, the agency, there was always a spirit of giving back. So early on, I worked for Dan Pollock, and he
Oh,
was
there's
all
a
about,
name, a blast from the
yeah.
past.
And I learned so much from him about it isn't about you, it is about, the greater good. And he always used to say, get caught in the act of doing something good. And I will never forget that for as long as I live. And he also always said, do something every day that you bring an idea to someone. And that I'd love for you to do it with our clients, but if you bring an idea even to your family or a friend, something that's going to do great for someone else, then you will always be prepared for that next thing. And I've never forgotten that. And to this day, really live by that. But the skills are transferable. And the transition for me has been wonderful because at least I had the ability to be on the board. So I knew enough about the mission and fell in love with the mission to be able to then bring those things that I had learned all these years to Make-A-Wish. I mean, leadership is leadership, right? I mean, for the most part.
Yeah, and throughout your career, then, you have really been about building strong teams and relationships. In fact,
Yes.
you've got this giraffe metaphor. You have giraffes all over your office. So
All
you give
over.
away stuff, giraffes. Tell us a little bit about that and how does that play into building strong teams and relationships?
Very early on, even as a little kid, I was always infatuated with giraffes. And okay, I'm 5'4", so maybe there's a little bit of, being a little bit vertically challenged. But with that said, I've always been intrigued with how beautiful they are and what they stand for. And one of the things that a friend introduced me to was, have you ever thought about your animal, and doing something with that? And we shared a love of giraffes. And the first time I was really introduced to it was, take risks, right? So stick your neck out. So anytime, I'm with a group of leaders or actually anybody, make sure that you are doing that. So the giraffe and leadership skills have a lot to do with that. And I'll just give you a couple of others that are kind of fun. And that is every giraffe is unique because there are no two giraffes that have the same spots. So while you want to find the uniqueness in yourself, it is so much more important to find the uniqueness in the people that you work with and then bring out that very best in them, right? And then the giraffe also has the largest heart of any land mammal. And it also can hurt very severely the king of the jungle with a swift kick. So that translates into having really great heart, right? So you have empathy, and then also you have to have edge. You have to be able to make tough decisions. But as the storytelling goes, explain the why behind why you're making that decision. So just am so fascinated about their vision and how they can see ahead of everyone else because of their stature. And these are all qualities, I mean, obviously of being a great human, but also of being a great leader. If you possess even 3 or 4 of those and then give people the opportunity to really, grow and do all those things, there's really kind of a fun spirit with that. And we have them all over because we do encourage everyone to take a risk. What's the worst that happens? You make a mistake, and we fix it or we do it over, but you'll never know what could happen if you didn't take that first step to do that. So that's kind of fun. And they're herbivores. So they're very, very big into self care. So I'm going to translate that into it. And they
You've
get the
got it
best
all.
leaves. They get the best leaves because they're tall. And that's how you keep really great talent, and you can recruit really good people if you have the best leaves as well as a great leader.
You've got it all figured out. The giraffe is your spirit
It
animal.
is my spirit animal. But, we do reserve, for the elephant in the room and the lion for courage. I mean, we do reserve, opportunities for them. But yes, I love giraffes.
Well, how do you then, Fran, use storytelling again from your advertising career to your sales career, which is all about storytelling, of course, to what you're doing now with Make a Wish Arizona, and how do you bring story into play?
Well, fortunately, when you think about Make a Wish as a brand, I mean, it stands on its own. But when you bring that connection with every child, and every child has a different story, right? So every time they come up with whatever that is, like Jesse, who wanted a man cave, I mean, talk about the opportunity to tell a story on why he wanted it, to keep his sisters, out and away from him so he could have a place where he could really relax, especially when these kids are going through chemo and things where they have a respite that they can go to. But it is so important to connect back. And for us, the story of it all started in Arizona. If we had $1 for everyone that didn't know that Make a Wish started in Arizona with a little boy who wanted to be a police officer, we wouldn't have to fundraise, right? But there's not one day that goes by if we weren't telling that story, that it all started here. Make a Wish is this international phenomenon, and it all started in basically Scottsdale, Arizona.
What year
So
was that?
1980. So
1980.
Chris would have been 52 this year. His birthday was in August, and his leukemia is 95% curable because of all the things that have happened with modern medicine and all the, it's incredible. So
Mm-hmm.
you find that, a lot of people also think we're terminally ill. So that art of storytelling is also letting people know that, 80% or more of our kids outlive their diagnosis. So a lot of people think because we have a lot of cancer kids that they're terminally ill. So if we didn't use storytelling to make sure that everyone understood that it's not necessarily a last wish, it's a lasting wish, and the power of a wish and what it does for the family, the child, the community, everyone surrounding them, we would not have truly the opportunity to do anything that we need to do. So I can't emphasize how much and how important storytelling is, and the work that you do, because you even enhanced us, and we thought we were pretty good storytellers. We're even better now because now we have our ABT and we can do it in a more meaningful way.
Oh, that's great to hear. Well, I want to ask you about that because you have a very powerful board. And when I walked into that room a month or so ago to sit down, I mean, you have the major players in there from the Phoenix Suns to Cox to lots of different major
Yeah.
companies. And these are very smart people that are obviously extraordinarily dedicated to what you're doing at Make a Wish Arizona. And so a lot of nonprofits have these kinds of boards, but where do you feel like sometimes they fall down or are less effective in how they are trying to communicate the mission and the vision of the organization?
Well, and that's our role, right? So at the end of the day, everyone is sitting there as a volunteer, right? As we remind our team all the time, they have full time jobs. So we have to give them all the tools and the resources to make sure that they really are very well educated and they know how to tell the Make a Wish story. I do have to share this with you because I've been holding out on you. So I won't tell you who it was, but someone in the room from a very large organization was negotiating while for something, and during the break he transferred his ABT and he got the order. So if you think about the impact of you coming in and just him on one of our breaks saying, "Hey, I'm going to try this ABT thing and tell the story a little bit differently," and he was able to get through and communicate in a way that got him actually the sale. So
That
I
deal,
didn't share
that
that
is
with you.
amazing.
Yeah.
So we're
So
in there trying to prep them to tell the Make a Wish Arizona story at the
right.
ABT, but they're working people. So he went out at the break and revised his pitch.
And that's the point, right? So for us, not only are we thrilled that they're part of our organization, but we want to give them back something too. So anytime we can bring someone in like yourself that helps them in their regular career, that's kind of our thing to say, hey, we value you so much. Yes, we want you to fundraise and do all the things that we've asked you to do, but we want to give you something back as well. So I think that's a big part of, trying to stay top of mind with that is really important to us, because we always want to make sure that we aren't taking advantage, because we understand how busy everyone is and the big jobs, to your point, that they have. So if we can add a little, sweetness and greatness to that, that makes us feel really good in terms of that. So
Yeah,
that's
that
a
is
big
so
part of it.
cool.
But we're very lucky. We have amazing, I would say we have the best board of directors of any nonprofit. You heard it here.
They're impressive, and they came out in full too. It wasn't like you had just a skimpy little gathering there. Everybody was there. It was
Yeah.
very cool. In your years, you have about this, 4 decades of work is like I have in the advertising communications world, and the and but therefore the ABT narrative framework. I wished I had learned about in the third grade. I would have used it completely different in building my agency and so forth. You, for the first time you heard it, was at that Phoenix Business Journal
Yes.
Nonprofit Summit. What was it about it from your professional career as a communicator and a salesperson and now CEO that really struck you about that particular
Yeah. I think
framework?
the aha moment for me was, wow, this is so simple. Yet we spend all this time particularly focused on ourselves, right? And trying to, I call it throwing up on someone, where it really framed everything for me to say, whoa, we need to take a step back and we need to make it about them. So even though, all the sales training, you and I have done and marketing and all that, you forget about that. And when you can take something as simple as knowing what the ABT is, like I think about it all the time now as a filter. And even conversations that we have with the team, and quite frankly, even conversations I have with my husband, and my kids, it's very, very effective and it's very simple. But that was the one thing that I really walked away with, reminding myself and all of us that it is not about us. And this is why we do the work we do, but reminding us that, wow, aha moment, we need to really make it about, the person in our audience that we're talking to, and why it's important for them, and why to get, how to get them excited and engaged
Mhm.
with something that maybe they really never thought they'd have an opportunity to do.
Yeah,
So that was big. That was a really big one. I mean, for the people that were there, that was also, I think, an aha moment for them too.
yeah. So cool. So let's go back to this idea about, and you've done this so well throughout your career of building these strong teams and relationships. Certainly sales and marketing at Cox Media, very, very large organization, important role, and now what you're doing at Make a Wish. Can you share some of the techniques that you use to help build these teams and relationships?
I think it's truly, when you're even going through the hiring process, making sure you don't hire the person that's just like you, because you will get into that. Unfortunately, you'll get into like that part of where you don't think differently. And I think from a diversity standpoint, the more you can bring people that are different in and bring them together and build trust, and quite frankly, get the heck out of the way, let them do their jobs, right? So be there, to support them, and make time for them. So I like to do what we call listening tours. So twice a year, I meet with every employee. I do it with our board as well, and our volunteers, and, community leaders, anyone that I can get in front of, to really, my favorite question to ask them is, what makes you tick and what ticks you off? Because you, particularly our employees, you find out kind of what their pet peeves are, and you really want to try to listen to them to find it out. And I will tell you, no matter how much training we do on active listening and distractions, and how much more distractions are now than when we started, in the business, it's a lot. But I still find that telling the why and explaining to everyone, even if the answer is no, why we have to do this or why we are doing it, I believe that context of that storytelling has made a difference. And I feel like that's that special secret sauce that really does help. But the other part is also telling people you appreciate them and they're valued. Because, the work we do is not easy, especially for our wish managers and the people that are talking and really with our wish families consistently. It's not easy, and it's very fulfilling, but it's hard stuff. So just making sure we really care for everybody and take the time to do that is really, really important. But
Hmm.
you got to let people know you care about them.
You know, Fran, that's the one thing too. Of just going quickly back to the ABT. I was talking with someone the other day about it. The reason why it works, of course, is it uses the three forces of story, of agreement, contradiction, and consequence. But in
Yeah.
using it as the storyteller, you have to go in and do your homework about that audience or that person sitting across from you. And then using the ABT, it creates what I call the three forces of trust building.
Yeah.
And that is to demonstrate that you understand that person sitting across from you. You appreciate what they want relative to what you have to offer and why that's important to them. And you empathize with them as to why they don't currently have it because of what problem you are going to help them overcome, that then builds that trust for that third statement of consequence, the therefore. Imagine when
Yeah.
you get it when you do this with us. Then your call to action comes in, but it really plays to that trust
It
building.
does. And I think it's generational now too, right? So every generation shows up a little bit differently and even learns differently. So making sure that you've got that dialed in and asking for feedback and giving feedback. And what I have found, because this is the first time I've actually worked in an organization where 75% of our team are millennials and Gen Z. So for me, just adjusting to the style and having to also understand what is important to them, especially having a voice. Community, obviously, that's why they are at Make a Wish because they are so involved in mission and community. But you really have to think about that in a little bit different way than ever before. And I love it because, it keeps you really thinking about, again, what's important. And even our Wish kids, right? They're the ages between 2.5 and 18. We have to be dialed into what their needs are and what they really want and really meet them where they are. And the same with our team. We have to do that. And, we always say, I learned feedback is a gift, but it really is. If you don't know you're doing something, then no one tells you, you're not going to be able to do something about it. And creating growth opportunities for people, it's so important. So they need to know they have a path because we want to keep our great talent. We don't want them going anywhere unless, of course, there's an amazing opportunity that we can't give to them. But if we don't create that path for them and show them where they can go and how they can grow, we always like to say, let's grow, right? So it's meaningful in so many different ways, but it's really important to make sure that we do that and we do that as leaders.
Do you ever have to overcome the challenge of your staff and maybe even your board members about selling Make a Wish Arizona? So what I mean by that is I was doing a leadership training about a year ago down in the valley with a bunch of healthcare professionals, and there was about 60 of them in the room. And I said, how many of you here are leaders? And of course, all 60 hands go up. And then I said, and how many of you are in sales? And 2/3 of the room took their hands down. And I said, unfortunately, as a leader, you are in sales because you are getting people to buy into your mission, your vision, your product or service, or whatever. Do you have that same challenge in the nonprofit world of letting your people know that you are selling Make a Wish? And it's not
Yeah.
a bad thing,
It's
but
so
you got
funny
to
that
get
you
people
say
to buy
that.
in.
Yeah, the terminology is a little bit different because we're all fundraisers.
Mhm.
So, and we do talk about that, and the same thing, particularly most people that are not in the development team don't think that they are fundraisers, but they do now. So
Mhm.
they understand that every connection they make, every person that they talk to, they are an ambassador for Make a Wish. So it doesn't matter if you get up in the morning and all you're doing is talking to a Wish family, that Wish family ultimately will become an alumni Wish family, and they have the ability to give, whether it's their time or resources or in kind, or they can write a check if they are in a position to do that. And I think that it has switched for us,
Mhm.
that people are really believing, oh my gosh, I can have an impact not only in the work that I'm doing, maybe perhaps as a Wish manager, but I might actually be able to get one of our Wish families or even a volunteer in our community engagement team to actually donate something. So it is definitely changing as we continue to tell our internal story that everyone here is a fundraiser because we're having an impact on every single child with the power of Wish.
Yeah. It reminds me too of what I like to call the know, like, and trust storytelling flywheel. It's the three levels, and like you Make-A-Wish, Arizona is a great example. Is number one is what are you known for? What are you known to do in the world? And of course, that's where the ABT comes in to get that real brand differentiator mapped out, and so people understand immediately what you do. And then you get to the like part. And the like is then finding these stories of the impact that you are having in the world and sharing these stories, because people love storytelling. They don't necessarily like, features and benefits and lists and data, charts and graphs. So you become way more likable when you're sharing those stories. And then the third part of that, the know, like, and trust, is the trust part is when people now trust you so much that they are sharing your story with their world
And
for the
being
most
an
valuable
ambassador.
form of advertising there is, free
Yeah.
word of mouth marketing.
Well, and to your point, we say being mission driven doesn't mean that we're not business focused, right? At the end of the day, I mean, we are running a business, right? We have to make sure that we raise enough money in order to grant all of these wishes. And, we have overhead that we want to make sure we have people that are here that can grow and have, reasonable, obviously, responsibilities, but we want to make sure they can afford to pay their rent and their mortgage or their car payment and everything else. So it is always bringing that back and making sure we're teaching that as well. That, yeah, at the end of the day, yes, we are mission driven, but we are also business focused. And I think that's an important key for profit to nonprofit, is just reminding everybody. I think it was always there, but it's also making sure that we tell that story. And even once a month, we have our CFO come in and we call it David's Data. And he talks about what's happening in the economy, what's happening particularly in Arizona. Because if we don't know everything that is happening, how on earth can we, serve everybody that we need to serve? And then how does that impact us? And what do we have to do from a business perspective to change? We talk about the election. We have no idea what's going to happen right after the election. We can make some assumptions and we can say, okay, if this happens, we think this will happen, but at least we're thinking about that, on what we might have to do differently or the same, or even what are we doing up until the election, right? So these are things that from a business perspective, we have to be thinking about. And that's part of that whole, but we have the best mission that we can, accommodate that with. So very, very lucky.
Tell me a little bit about your weekly leadership quotes that you have been putting out there for a long, long time. How did that start, and why do you keep doing it?
It started with my dad. So many, 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 many years ago, my dad would come up with these quotes and I'd be like, where did you get that from? So he would say things like, always color outside the lines, again, take a risk, and what's the worst that happens, right? If you get in trouble, you'll learn something from it and you'll be better for it. Or he would say, don't make other people small by being tall. Basically telling me, don't have an ego, be humble, don't do the things that can really affect people in a very negative way. And I could go on. And I thought, okay, this is great. And he does it with our kids too. So when he was alive and the girls were younger, at dinner, we would talk about what our high and our low was, what was the best thing that happened and what is something that you'd like to change. And he would talk about a quote, and they were young. So I thought, okay, I'm going to take this from my dad because it's had such an impact on myself. And the girls are now 30 and 27 and they remember all of this.
Oh, yeah.
So he's been gone, unfortunately, longer than I'd like. And I said, from that day forward, I'm going to start a quote of the week. And I did. And that was almost 30 years ago. Wow. That's crazy. Well, like 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Because the girls were
even
little.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And then about 10 years ago, I started, and I do that on Mondays. And I have a stream of, consistent people that I send it out to. And then I started a leadership quote about 10 years ago on a Friday. So I thought, okay, if we can start our week with something that's, really positive and gets people going. And then on Friday, we'll end the week with something that can, hopefully be meaningful too. I think for me, it helps me as well. So you'll always know where my head's at and what I'm thinking when you see the quotes.
Well, you even had some people from Cox say, after you moved over to Make-A-Wish, like, you're not going to stop providing the quotes, are you,
right?
Fran?
And I didn't. And I had, all throughout, that time frame, people, even that have left the company, said, "Can I still be on your quote of the week?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." So it's
Can
been kind of
anybody
fun.
sign up for your quote of the week?
Oh yeah, anybody that wants can just reach out to me and I'll add them to the distribution. I did start my quote of the week. I did start on LinkedIn probably a while ago. So if you are LinkedIn with me, you'll at least get the Monday quote of the week as well. I just don't
Mm-hmm.
put the leadership one on there.
Gotcha. Where can people connect with you since we're at that point right now?
Oh yeah, they can just I'm just Fran Mallace at LinkedIn.
Oh, okay. That's the best way. Just go through LinkedIn
Yeah,
and
I
track
think
you
so.
down.
I think that would be
Yeah.
great. But if anybody wants to know anything about Make-A-Wish though and you want to give back, definitely you can become a volunteer. You can, I mean, there's so many things you can do, but you can visit us at arizona.wish.org.
Arizona.wish.org. How many? It did start there in Phoenix or in Scottsdale in
Yeah.
1980. You said, how many different Make a Wish organizations are
Ah.
there now?
Yeah, so there's 58 chapters domestically and about 40 chapters internationally. And we just had our record-breaking year for wishes right here in Arizona. We did 460 50 oh six let's see, wait, I'm 462 wishes. Whew. It's
In
more
one
than
year?
in 1 year, more than one a day. And we've signed up for more for our next fiscal, which started in September. And we are very optimistic because of such a great community that will continue to reach every eligible child that we can and grant them a wish for the
Mhm.
state of Arizona, and then of course for the whole country and the whole world. But I think there's something like almost 600,000 wishes internationally and domestically since 1980. And we just surpassed in April 8,000 wishes just in Arizona. So, a really rich history and greatness with this chapter for the last 45 years. We're celebrating our 45th year this year.
That is so cool. And you've got
So
a
cool.
lot of really dedicated people that invest their time and energy and, of course, funding, because you've got to have funding to
Yes.
make these wishes happen. Can I ask, on average, what does a wish cost?
Typically about $10,000 for a wish.
Wow.
Yeah,
And that could be in-kind trade and or cash out of pocket to be able to
correct.
make that happen?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we have some that are more, and then we have some
Yeah.
that are less. But on average, travel costs are definitely going up. And one of the things that we've been very focused on are the underserved communities, particularly in the last year or two. So we do have more and more families that are larger, but we want to make sure that they can have that great experience, particularly if travel is involved. So we're going to keep going and keep fundraising so that we can include everybody.
And what are the criteria people have to match, meet up to be able to become a wish,
So we have an
taker?
incredible medical advisory. So if you do go to the website, it'll tell you those that typically qualify, typically malignant cancer and things like that. But it does go through a medical advisory board, and then once they approve everything, then we are ready to go and we start talking in the discovery phase with our families.
Hmm. Okay. And then how long does it typically take for a wish to be granted?
It could take up to 9 to 12 months, because depending on what that wish is, if it's to meet a particular celebrity, if it's to go travel somewhere specifically, or depending on resources, again, if it's like a room redo. Shopping sprees typically are the fastest, but also treatment plans and things like that. But the beauty of that is we get kids to take their medicine and go to their appointments because they're waiting for a beautiful wish to happen so that they can be healthy enough to do that. But typically anywhere from 9 to 12 months.
Mhm. And what is, in the 10 years you've been working there as a volunteer and CEO, what is the wildest wish that you have heard that has been granted?
Oh my gosh, the wildest. Oh, there's so many. I would say, I mean, the man cave was pretty fun. That was in the last couple of years. We've had kids that have wanted to go to Japan to the animation studios. I mean, I think Nicholas going to meet the Pope and spending time with him, a significant amount of time with him after, so many surgeries and things like that. That's probably the wildest because he actually flatlined on the table and the angels told him that he needed to see the guy in the white robe. So that's probably the wildest, and it's really true. We have validation because he shared that with us at a board meeting. That's probably one of the wildest ones. But what I love is there's a doctor, and I think his name's Dr. Patel. He was asked, what's your favorite wish? And he always says, the next one. So I wish I would have come up with that because it's so powerful. But we just love, the more creativity and truly whatever that child wants, it's going to help them get through, a really tough time and really impact the siblings, the family, the community, and everyone around them. We love it. But I love that. That's like one of my favorite things that doctor says. And I think he was a medical advisor as well. But yeah, his favorite wish is the next one. So that is hard to top. That is just, I get goosebumps every time I think about that. So I wish I would have thought of that.
Well, you can put it in your quotes now. That can go out on Monday.
That's true. I could quote him. I love that.
Absolutely. Well, Fran, thank you so much. I know how swamped you are, and I really appreciate you being here on the show.
Always wonderful, and always make the time for something as wonderful as this. So thank you for everything, and thank you for the opportunity to spend time with you.
Awesome. Thank you, Fran. Have a great day.
You too, and weekend.
Yeah.
Bye.
I know. It's finally here.
Yay. Bye.
Thank you for listening and sharing this edition of The Business of Story. If I can help you and your folks excel through the stories you tell, then please reach out. You can use my virtual trainings, my in-person training, a hybrid thereof, or you can do it yourself with our online ABTs of Storytelling micro-training course. You can find that at businessofstory.com/ABT. Thanks, Caden Howell, for editing the show, Marissa Hill for marketing and community development, and for Darius Holbert, who has produced our amazing theme music. Please join us next Monday when legendary sales leadership management guru Marshall Goldsmith, considered by many to be the #1 executive coach in the world, shares his insights coming out in a new book. Until then, remember that the most potent story you'll ever tell is the story you tell yourself. So make that one epic. Thanks so much for listening.